Like that was a surprise for me.
Mm,
I hadn't seen it at the time we were talking about it, but now that I have, it was a surprise for me.
mm. Yeah, very, very great movie. All right. So, let's get into a movie that we have both seen. So,
Mhm.
our next and final review of the day is going to be for Wonka. Just Wonka is the title of this movie, a prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's starring Timothee Chalamet and directed by Paul King. And you might think, like a lot of people probably when this came out, it's like, oh, you're making a prequel about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Like, who the fuck wants to see that? Who wants to discover, how he kind of made the chop and everything like that? Especially when given the track record of a lot of prequels, when they turn out to be pretty bad.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? They turn out to be pretty bad. But there are some few exceptions to the prequel rule that some can be very good. Because most often it's the challenge of how do you get over what you already know is going to happen, in the story and making that kind of exciting for people. But there are some exceptions, like Planet of the Apes movies are one of those things. But yeah, so you have this directed by Paul King. Hey, thank you,
Javon
Javon
Good.
Good. Thank you for the 40 bits there, man. Much appreciated there, Javon Good. And this is from the director of the Paddington movies. That gave me a little bit of hope for this movie coming into it. And I love the Paddington movies. He did Paddington
Oh
1
yeah,
and
they're
2.
fantastic.
If you've never seen the Paddington movies, please, I recommend checking them out. They're wonderful family films,
Super
very
charming.
super charming, super heartwarming films. Very, very terrific. So if you've never seen those, and I think Paul King, what he does with the Paddington movies, carries over a lot to the Wonka movie here. And this Wonka movie, it's a musical. So you'll get a lot of musical sequences in this, and I think a lot of this movie kind of hinges on whether or not maybe you like Timothy Chalamet and kind of what he's doing as Wonka. It's hard coming into this role playing Willy Wonka, who, is such an iconic, legendary character played by Gene Wilder. I know a lot of people were kind of maybe hoping for Jeremy Allen White
Yeah.
to play Willy Wonka because there's a very
I mean,
strong
my
resemblance.
God.
I mean, there's a side by side picture here. Like some people even think they're related, and they're not related. You know what I mean at all. But he bears a very strong resemblance to him. And Jeremy
He
Allen White,
he's also a
he's
good
got
actor.
yeah, he's also a very good actor. He's kinda blowing up right now. He's actually gonna be in a movie coming out recently, coming out next week called The Iron Claw, and then he's also in a very popular drama series called The Bear, which people really
Oh
love.
yeah,
So
Bear's great, and I'm looking forward to Iron Claw.
yeah, so he's a very good actor and he's very talented. But with Timothée Chalamet, I know he's also really hot right now, a major
Yeah.
actor as well, and a bunch of stuff. One of whom we're going to talk about in a minute with the trailer reaction, the Dune series. The main various other
Mhm.
dramas. So he's kind of also making it as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the musical sequences in this are very well done and they are very good. And I'm not too big of a musical guy myself. But seeing it, just telling the story of Wonka coming into this town and his dream of being the world's greatest chocolate maker and running into all this misfortune, you know what I mean? And like this corrupt town run by these three businessmen here, who kind of, have basically they say a cartel, as they say, you know what I mean? A lock on the chocolate industry. It's like they push out anybody who tries to come in and, invade on their turf. It's like some gang war type shit.
Mhm.
And he has to try to make his way there and fighting all these kind of different obstacles to realize his dream. um, so what were kind of some of your thoughts on Wonka and Timothy Chalamet's performance as Willy Wonka?
Um, this movie felt like a very almost a whimsical Gangs in New York,
Mm, okay.
which I never thought I'd ever say those words together, but there you go. Um, this movie is first and foremost very much a Paddington-esque whimsy, and you're either with that or you're not because that's what Timothy Chalamet plays it. Gone is the harder edge that Gene Wilder so pitch perfectly played. I think there's no contest that everyone says that he was the perfect cast for Wonka, and he is at this point a character. He's pretty much a British landmark. He's a British. They like everyone knows him. Everyone knows that character. That movie is a classic. Still super catchy song, super catchy music, and you just can't beat it. So whatever actor was going to play the role as Wonka had an uphill battle, and Timothy Chalamet, in my opinion, just doesn't quite stick the landing. I think he was a bit miscast. I think the role is a bit too gosh golly gee, almost Rock of Ages level of, oh, look at the world. Everything is wonderful and whimsy, and I'm going to follow my dreams. And I just don't see that character that later becomes Wonka. There's no wit. There's no s- hint of an educated man or a man who is eventually has the pros of being someone so fiscally uh, well endowed, someone who's just so skillful in his craft in the nature, but having just enough of a slyness that he's able to get out of it. Honestly, he comes off almost buffoonish and dumb in some moments in this movie where I just go, all right, I guess.
Mm,
That is true, Javon Good. And his mom was from the Guillermo del Toro movie. They'd have sex with the fish, man.
yeah. What was that movie? Got the name of that movie, the Guillermo del
Uh,
Toro film. But y'all know it got it won Best Picture
yeah.
there and everything. Yeah, that's the actress who plays his mother there. Um, and then Lucky Dog Podcast said he heard this is a separate universe. He heard The Shape of Water. That's right, John. Good.
Yeah, Shape
The
of
Shape.
Water.
That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. That it being in a separate universe. I haven't heard anything about that. But yeah, I guess I kind of see what you're saying. Now, I mean, I know this is gonna sound like heresy. It's gonna sound crazy.
Sure.
And you might take away my credit card for this,
Uh-oh.
but I've never seen the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh.
I've never actually ever seen it. Like,
Ooh.
it's one of those movies on the list of movies that it gets so much referenced in pop culture, you feel like you've seen it. Like,
Yeah.
I've also never seen The Wizard of Oz. I've never seen that.
Oh.
So I know that's crazy.
You gotta hand it in, man. You can't now.
Yeah,
It's on pause.
you know what I mean? I know that's yeah, that is really fucking crazy. I know. But it does make me wanna go and watch it finally, you know what I mean? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Mhm.
But I know a lot about it. I've, seen things from the movie. Obviously, very iconic stuff in the movie, which they do bring up in Wonka, like the songs you mentioned, like the Oompa
Oh,
Loompa song they bring back here. I know Lucky Dog Podcast. I know. I know.
yeah.
But yeah. So it's like, with Timothee Chalamet as a character, like how does this Wonka become, you know what I mean? This
Yes,
Wonka right here,
the danger must be growing, for
losing
the
his fucking
rowers
mind
keep
kinda, has
on
a little bit
rowing,
of a
and they're
weirdness,
certainly
craziness to
not
him.
showing any
Um,
signs that they are slowing.
how does he become that? I don't know. I guess that's just working in customer service for like a couple of decades. That'll make you kind of lose your fucking mind
Very
probably doing
relatable.
that. So you just thought that with Timothy Chalamet, he just was too naive, you think? A little
I
too
think I think he's a bit too gosh golly without having a level. He can be mostly naive, but he needs to have some of that slyness, a little bit of that wit, a little bit of he needs to have moments where where you see the hint of the intellect in him, where he goes, it's all about the subtle moments. I was waiting just for a moment where someone would give him some kind of lip or someone would do something and he'd pull a we are the music makers, we are the dreamers of dreams or something, some kind of like stopping in his track to show the maturity and the intellect in him that he's, oh, this guy, oh, he knows his stuff. He may be like a charming guy. He is really uh, positive, but there is that man in him. There's a difference between Gene Wilder in the movie as Wonka was he was eccentric in the old school terminology of eccentric. He had quirks and a personality, but eccentric doesn't necessarily mean like almost, yeah. Like Lucky Dog said, he needs slight wit. And yeah, and he also needs to be kind of an a-hole sometimes. Just a little bit. He can be like a little bit of an a-hole sometimes just to get his point across and to keep you on your toes. But he doesn't really have that. He's a little too okay. I believe you. He's very much the meme. Okay, I believe you. And we'll just get through it.
mm,
And that only goes so far where you can take him seriously. I needed moments of quiet, moments where I could take this character at least seriously. And this tone in the movie is also a little inconsistent. And sometimes we're doing these daydreaming moments, and then other times it's characters are saying and doing things. You're like, that doesn't make any. But then the movie just goes, just go with it. And I'm like, okay, I guess.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm not trying to be harsh on this movie. I'm just what works for Paddington Bear doesn't necessarily work for a character like Wonka. I I'm actually is a surprise, surprise. I'm actually kind of a fan of musicals on occasion. I actually quite like them. I was
Mm.
expecting more like The Music Man almost, where like a lighter version of a con man shows up to town and does his job, and adventures happen, or almost like a Cat in the Hat in a way, where he kind of shows up and he has intellect and wit, kind of a jerk, but in a playful way, where almost like a trickster. And he's a young man, but he's got ambition, but he still has enough heart and charm to care about people's dreams and ambitions and his own. But he has but he's still learning. But he's still, you can see where where he's gonna go.
Mm.
But I never quite got that. And I mean, I'm not gonna try and dog on Timothee Chalamet completely because he's not the only one. I think Kelly Lane, who plays a character, or a girl named Noodle,
Mhm.
I think she's just not very good in the movie. I think she tries, but she doesn't really emote quite often, or she does expressions really. Uh, she does like a lot of very extreme emotions, or like what? She doesn't really emote too often. She'll have a reaction, but it's like, what are you feeling here? I can't tell if you're angry, excited,
I
surprised.
I do think in a lot of her tone, it is very much like sometimes when kids act,
Yeah,
they act like everything they're asking is a question,
yeah.
kinda. They have that kinda tone to it. It's like, even though it's not a question, it kinda has that tone of a question. But I mean, I still thought she was pretty good, and I still thought her and Timothée Chalamet kinda worked well together in a lot of their scenes together. Lucky Dog Podcast, said, "Personally, I didn't find most of the songs any better or catchy than the '70s Wonka." Well, you're dealing with the '70s Wonka, a lot of, classic hits there that you're kinda competing with. Not
I
saying
mean,
you couldn't have classics too with this one. I
mhm.
still thought some of the songs were pretty good here. I like some I can go like I could see myself listening to this again. Like the when they do the Scrub song. I thought that was kind of decent. I thought that was pretty good. I thought the song when he first opens up the shop, I thought that was pretty good. What did you think about the songs in here when they do actually?
I thought they were fine for the most part. A couple of them are kind of catchy, but I mean, nothing's going to beat those original classics. That's just, which honestly, the more you learn about the movie, it's a miracle that first Wonka movie was ever made.
Mm,
Because they were literally flying by the seat of their pants. They were guerrilla filmmaking. They had a super low budget, super ambitious. They wrote the songs in advance on just do whatever. These are the base things we need you to write it about, and then we'll figure a way to put them in the movie. A lot of scenes in that movie were this is your first time viewing it. This is your first time seeing this set. This is your first time doing this, and you're just told ahead of time. So a lot of it's a lightning in a bottle movie in many ways.
mm.
It's a fascinating movie in its own right, both on screen and off, and it's still a classic today. The music in this, I didn't find anything too catchy, but I didn't think any of them was particularly bad or anything. I like the like I'm not trying to come off as being a curmudgeon because I do like the idea of I do like a whimsical musical. I think that works. It can. Just for a character like Wonka, I needed just a bit more of a slyness, a bit more of a wink and a bit more trickstery slash intellect behind it at the same time.
Like
Well, yeah,
the thief with the heart of gold, kind of.
kind of. Not necessarily like a thief of heart gold, but like a businessman who actually knows proper business. Again,
Mm.
like a con man, or like it would have been interesting to see a someone who shows up and does something weird, but there should be that level of mystique with Wonka.
Mm.
It's there needs to be that level of mystique where you never quite know what Wonka's about, but you get to see a little bit of him. I think a younger Wonka showing up, never quite showing all his cards, is something that really needed to be, I think, a focal point. He should have been like a mysterious, uh, main character, but like a mysterious main character, or other characters knew of him, and then finally you see Wonka for the first time as a young man, and it's like that'll be this amount, and this, I got this, and I promise you, you've never had this. So you needed to have charm and wit, but there also needed to be an education behind it. But he's still learning
Mm, okay.
a bit. There's
Um,
ways you could have done it. The movie's not bad by any means. I don't want to say this. It's not bad by any means. But when it comes with a character like Wonka, you do have unfortunately higher expectations for what's along it. But I do believe you know what, I'll talk also about the what did you feel about the Oompa Loompa?
so the Oompa Loompa here is played by Hugh Grant. You have that in this, and I don't know the exact origin of like how he originally got the Oompa Loompas, how he originally formed up with them.
Would
I know that
would
in
you like
the
me to tell you?
okay, is it kind of like what happened in the Johnny Depp Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Is that kind
Kind
of
of
what?
more, but more like racist.
Okay, all right. So in the way they kind of show, but you can tell me after I
Sure.
do this. But yeah, Hugh Grant, who plays the Oompa who Hugh Grant will also work with Paul King in the first Paddington movie. And I like Hugh Grant. I like he's kind of
Always nice to see him.
he's kind of having a career resurgence a little bit over these past decade or so, a little bit. And I think he's good. I think he's really good as the Oompa Loompa, and I think he's really funny there in the scenes that he does comes in. Since I have the trailer up for this, because this was the last Wonka movie that we kind of saw here. What was your opinion on Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and kind of what Johnny Depp did with Willy Wonka?
I saw that in theaters, and I considered walking out. I
Mm,
considered it. I didn't, but I considered it.
okay. I've never actually seen this one either.
It's technically more book accurate, actually. It's the most accurate of the Roald Dahl movie of the adaptation, but this was Tim Burton at his most CGI special effects version. I think Tim Burton of the 90s could have done a really good job, but Tim Burton in the 2000s.
Mm, okay. So what is the origin story of like the Oompa Loompa, and what did you think about Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa?
The origins of the Oompa Loompa are basically kind of what you thought. He kind of shows up to an island. The drawings of them are not very not very nice. They kind of draw them as indigenous people, and he basically convinces them to join them, kind of almost indentured servitude. Or he convinces them, "Oh, I'll pay you with chocolate," and that's basically what it is. That's mostly the origin, to
Mm,
an extent, with some small changes here and there. Uh, and then as like adaptations have gone, they've lessened it more and more to the point where it's like, yeah, they get paid in chocolate, but they want to be there, and they work for him because they love Wonka.
mm. And this is what they originally looked like
The Oompa Loompa,
in the books?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
pretty much.
Okay.
And even in the original movie, there was discussion of like, how are we gonna take they're basically actually called pygmies. They're not even
Mm.
really called Oompa Loompas. They're called pygmies.
Oh,
So
gee.
they're like,
Okay.
how are we gonna adapt this? Even in the 70s, like, how are we gonna adapt this? And they just went, screw it. We're just gonna call them Oompa Loompas, and we're gonna give them green dye and green hair and orange skins. Yeah, they might as well be saying a word that I can't say because I want money. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, just say
Javanka.
wow. Yeah. Actually, I've no yeah. Yeah, this is
They
this is cool.
Roald Dahl's work is controversial for a reason, although I do think it should not be censored, but it is, you know, it is his work,
Mm,
good or bad. But I was gonna say, funny enough, the Oompa Loompas, I believe the reason why the first movie kind of has the timeless feel, and they kind of got this here in the set, this almost timeless city where it has a lot of like cobblestone and bricks and everything's kind of laid out. It was actually filmed. The first film was filmed in Germany, but they actually didn't have any little people in Germany at the time, or enough of them, and so a lot of the Oompa Loompas were actually from Turkey. They got
mm,
flown in from Turkey and hired from Turkey, and they didn't speak any English. and so most of them, so they were just kind of told orders, like, "Hey, just be in the background, I guess. Do this, move
Yeah.
your
When
arms."
the I heard the working conditions was really terrible for a lot of the
I
Oompa Loompas.
mean, yeah, it's a rush. It was a rush set. They did as best as they could, but yeah, they were kind of wasn't great. There was also language barrier, so they were all in a rush. I think they did the whole movie in only a couple of months, and they had a budget, I think, of like 4 million,
Mm,
less than that. It was a the story. I would recommend looking up the doc once you watch the movie. Look up the documentary for it because it is a heck of a story on just it's a miracle that first movie even got made.
yeah. So
And
with
they
this
didn't
one,
and they didn't think it was gonna be as successful as it was.
so with Wonka, talking about a little bit about the supporting cast here. I do think you have Keegan Michael Key who's in this as the
Mhm.
chief of police. I think he does a pretty good job, especially a lot of the musical stuff he does. I mean, he's a big like theater guy anyway. Like he's a man of multi talents, a comedy and performance and everything. I kind of liked him quite a bit in the movie. You have Olivia Colman in this, who plays kind of an antagonist for Wonka in this. Olivia Colman, always good to see her in various different stuff. I think she's pretty good in this. So and when they do the actual kind of musical stuff and they do the choreography, I think that looks all really good. The visual aspect of this town he's in looks all really good. I like that quite a bit. So I mean, I guess I'm a little, probably more positive on this movie than Dusk is. I don't know if that's because I haven't seen the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory before or not. But I think Paul King, it's a tough task, trying to follow up or trying to, do something
Oh,
that's gonna
sure.
instantly gonna be compared to such a legendary classic film, to try to kinda measure up to that. And I think, it just is the movie just taking it just watching it. I thought I had a good time with this. I definitely would watch it again. I like some of the songs in here. Timothy Chalamet of kind of what he does is Wonka. Again, he also has a tough task of trying to be, he's going to instantly compare to like, well, Gene Wilder would have done it this way, or he would have, you know what I mean? Gene Wilder was a legendary comedian actor, and everything. But what's kind of some of your thoughts there on some of the supporting cast, the look of the movie? What's some of your thoughts there?
The look of the movie is probably one of the best parts of it. I really enjoyed the set design. I enjoyed the environments, like the use of colors and the use of the cinematography. I thought, for the most part, visually, I had no problems with this movie. I thought it fit the tone. Although even though the tone varied, I thought that it fit every scene they were trying to do and felt honestly pretty good. A lot of mistakes with a musical as they try to almost kind of make it like a stage play in a movie form and don't quite adapt to a movie. This one just gets quite right, and I think it's his experience from Paul King's experience from Paddington and doing other works that he's able to incorporate musical elements into a movie that fits well enough and pretty solid, honestly. For the supporting cast, I'm always happy to see Jim Carter as a if you have any Downton Abbey fans, I'm always happy to see him. He had great timing as usual. I thought Hugh Grant as Lofty was solid. I always like seeing Hugh Grant. I'm always happy to see him. Even if he plays the same role, I'm happy to see him. I thought everybody for the most part, those side characters are actually probably the most interesting aspects of it. Even the uh yeah, gosh, why am I blanking? What was her name again? The villain, Mrs. Scrubbits. Olivia Colman. I think even Olivia Colman is does a great job as just being this over the top villainess, along with her and Bleacher, played by Tom Davis.
Yeah, she gets
They're a
bring out
great
that
duo.
real
Oh,
Cockney accent. Yeah.
I laughed. I laughed a little bit, and I just couldn't believe it. The scene where they try to convince them that they're in love with each other, and he's like, "Show them thighs."
Yeah. I think this yeah, I think this
I was like, "That's bold of you, bud.
uh,
Got get that later, hosen."
yeah. So, what will be your rating for Wonka?
Uh, there are parts of this that I like, and I think if it was on its own, I would have probably rated it higher. And I've been tossing and turning on exactly what I would rate it, where I'm stuck between a low tune in and a high rental. And I've just been thinking about it back and forth, back and forth. And I think I think I'm gonna kinda land on a rental, on a high rental. I think this is a good enough rental piece where I think you get a lot of value from it seeing at home rather than seeing the theaters. But it's a high enough rental that if you did happen to check it out in theaters, go see it in a matinee. I think you'd have a solid time.
Mm,
But I wouldn't recommend it any higher than a matinee
mm.
theater. So until then, I'd say rental. Say a high
Drunken
rental.
Drunken says sounds like it belongs on Netflix. I don't know. I saw it in theaters. I don't regret seeing it in theaters. The audience I saw it with, they seemed pretty into it.
Which is why I said a high rental.
Yeah. And then some people even clapped afterwards when the movie was done.
Mhm.
I don't know what your theater experience was like.
Oh, it was, I didn't regret seeing this movie in theaters. I wanna make that clear.
Mhm.
I thought I was like, "Oh, okay." If it wasn't for the Wonka honestly, if it wasn't for the Wonka and this was just a doe-eyed character who
Yeah.
was like a completely brand new character in a story, I would have probably given it higher marks. But because it has that legacy attached to it, the rating comes down. But the theater experience overall, I thought it was pretty solid for the most part, pretty good. But I just considering everything, thinking about it, I just gave it a high rental because I just feel it's a, you know what? If you went to the theater, see it on a matinee, I think you'd have a fine enough time. But you'd be fine seeing this at home.
Mm. Okay. Um, hmm, I think I personally, I think I would give it. I think I was charmed enough by this movie,
Hmm.
that I would give it a tune in,
Yeah.
personally,
Okay.
which is kind of more of our. It's above a stream it there.
Yeah,
I
it's
think it's slightly above that.
slightly above it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd give it a tune in. Do I think it's as good as like if you've never seen Paul King's, like you mentioned, his two Paddington films? Do I think it rises to the level of those? No, I don't. I don't think it does. I think those movies are so heartwarming and so charming and so kind of whimsical. I guess is the word to use with those films. That it's like those are really really great if nobody's ever checked those out before. But this I think it somewhat is kind of brings back that style. It makes sense why you would get Paul King to do a Wonka movie and him gonna bring that style to this.
Hmm.
And if you depend on what you kinda like, if you're gonna like what Timothy Chalamet does as Wonka, maybe it's gonna depend a lot on that. As mentioned, Dusk had a kinda little bit of an issue with his performance there, as Wonka. Me, I thought it was pretty good. I liked kinda a little bit of what he was kinda doing there. Maybe it is a little too golly gee shucks, a little bit just the naivete, of a character maybe it's supposed to be, but, I still thought he did pretty good, and he did pretty good in the musical parts as well. It's always tough with these musicals when you get
Oh yeah.
actors who don't really know how to sing. It's not like he's the world's greatest singer, but I think he does great for what was required in this. The choreography I thought was really good. And this is what we mentioned before. Also, the concept of like these gangster, chocolate dudes who are pushing him out, and you know what I mean. And they even, I mean, and this is supposed to be a kids movie, but then they
Mhm.
have like they tell Keegan Michael Key, who's the chief of police, is like, yeah, we want you to kill him. Just straight up, they go like, yeah, we want you to
Yeah.
fucking
No,
whack
that
him.
that was actually legit funny on that. Where I was like, oh, okay, I appreciate that bit of humor. Could have used more of that, but it was. I did appreciate that even being mentioned to the point. There's also a nice scene where Key and Peele, yeah, sorry, Key talks to as the chief of police talks to Wonka, and Wonka says something along the lines of like, "Don't do this again." Or bump. I was like, "Oh, like after if we bumped you on the head." And he's like, "You never give me a bump in the head." He's like, "Yeah, I'm just really off today. I'm sorry." Like, and then proceeds to bonk him on the head.
Yeah, it pulls out and I like how it cuts immediately right before he does it too. Like I thought that was really great too. I thought that was kind of really funny there. But yeah, so I kind of like the whole kind of plot there of that kind of what's
Mhm.
going on. So yeah. So for me, I would give it it's a good tune in, a strong tune in, I think, for me.
Javon Good, do you think it was his acting or the writing? I think it's a bit of both, honestly. I think Timothy Chalamet is a little. I just don't think he really captured the essence, what he was really going for. And I think also it comes down to the writing as well. I think it's a bit of both. I think he was miscast, but I also think the writing let him down in some ways. But that's at least how I feel about it.
So yeah. So I give it a strong tune in. Dust gives it a high streaming for Wonka.